In the grand and often brutal tapestry of history, there are threads that simply come loose, disappearing into the weave without a trace. The story of the Roanoke colony is one such thread, a chilling account that begins with ambition and ends in an unnerving void. Imagine standing on a desolate shore, the salty wind whipping at your face, and finding an entire settlement abandoned, as if its inhabitants had simply evaporated into the humid air. This was the scene that greeted Governor John White in the late summer of 1590. More than 100 men, women, children were gone. The only clue left behind was a single cryptic word carved into a wooden palisade. Croatoan. Croatoan. This solitary word has echoed through more than 4 centuries, a haunting whisper that signifies one of America's oldest and most profound mysteries. The eerie silence that met John White was not just the absence of people, it was the absence of answers. The voyage to Roanoke was born from an era of immense ambition and nationalistic fervor. Late 16th century, England under Queen Elizabeth I. England eager to challenge Spain in the New World. Sir Walter Raleigh. He secured a royal charter. He envisioned a permanent English foothold, a base for privateering against Spanish treasure fleets, a source of valuable resources. Early attempts failed. In 1587, a more determined effort sailed. The expedition brought soldiers. It brought adventurers. It brought men. It brought women. It brought children. They intended to build a new English society. Their leader, John White. White as an artist. White as a cartographer. He'd been on a previous expedition. His gentle demeanor suggested diplomacy. 117 colonists. Among them, Eleanor Dare, pregnant. Arrival on Roanoke, July 1587. She gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born on American soil. Her birth seen as a powerful omen. The colonists repaired the fort and homes. Hopes remained high, but reality set in. They arrived too late to plant enough crops. Initial contacts with the Socotan, initial contacts with the Croatoan. Those encounters mixed curiosity and simmering hostility. The colonists were isolated, thousands of miles from home. Supplies dwindled alarmingly. They were Londoners. They were farmers, ill-prepared for this environment. Dream of prosperity gave way to survival. They'd planned to settle in Chesapeake Bay, more fertile land and better harbors. But a dispute with pilot Simon Fernandez. The colonists were left on Roanoke Island. That decision proved fateful. Trapped, resources limited, relations strained. Optimism frayed into anxiety. Mounting desperation would force a difficult choice. That choice set the stage for their mysterious disappearance. As the summer of 1587 drew to a close, colonists on Roanoke faced a grim realization. They wouldn't survive the winter. Their food stores were dangerously low. Hopes of trading with local tribes for sustenance had soured. Ongoing mistrust and sporadic violence made trade impossible. The community decided someone must return to England for supplies and reinforcements. After much debate, they persuaded Governor John White to go. He was reluctant to leave his family, including his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare. He nonetheless recognized the colony's survival depended on him. He promised to return quickly, a solemn vow to hopeful faces. White set sail for England in late August 1587, carrying urgent pleas and deep anxiety. The plan was simple: secure provisions and return by spring. But his timing couldn't have been worse. England was on high alert, preparing for war with Spain. The Spanish Armada was poised to invade. Queen Elizabeth ordered all seaworthy vessels commandeered for defense. A relief mission for a distant colony became a low priority. For 2 agonizing years, White was trapped in England. He petitioned the Queen. He pleaded with Sir Walter Raleigh. He negotiated with private ship owners. All attempts failed. He must have been consumed by frustration and despair, thinking of his daughter, his granddaughter, and the 100 souls he left behind. The war with Spain had, unintentionally, cut off Roanoke's lifeline. Finally, in 1590, 3 years later, White secured passage on a privateering ship that would stop at Roanoke. His emotions swirled: hope, fear, and dread. The ships approached the familiar coastline. He had arranged a signal before leaving: carve your destination into a tree or post. If in distress, carve a Maltese cross above the name. As White and his landing party rowed toward shore on a stormy August evening, they sounded a trumpet. They sang familiar English songs, hoping for an answer from the darkness. Only the wind and the waves replied. As John White and his men stepped onto the shores of Roanoke Island in August 1590, an eerie quiet greeted them. The settlement should have been bustling with the sounds of life. Children playing, blacksmiths hammering, families talking, but it was utterly silent. The houses stood in their familiar places, empty, their doorways like vacant eyes. It was a ghost town, completely abandoned. No boats lined the shore, suggesting they hadn't gone on a short expedition. Dread crept into the search party as they moved inland, calling names into unresponsive air. They reached the perimeter of the settlement and found a sturdy palisade of tall wooden posts. On one main post near the entrance, Croatoan, carved in bold capitals. The letters were clear and deliberate. There was no Maltese cross alongside it, the prearranged distress signal. Its absence gave White a flicker of hope, a planned relocation, not a massacre. Inside the palisade, the scene grew more puzzling. Houses had been dismantled, belongings methodically packed. Iron bars, lead shot, larger tools were left behind, buried in a pit as if to be retrieved later. There were no human remains, no skeletons, no graves. The ground showed no signs of battle. It was as if the whole community had simply vanished, taking personal items and leaving heavier things behind. The silence was absolute and unnerving. White's search was cut short by an approaching storm and a mutinous crew eager to sail. He wanted to sail to Croatoan Island, the obvious destination. He was convinced he'd find his family living among native allies. But fierce weather and the crew's refusal made the 50-mile journey impossible. With a heavy heart, John White sailed away, never to see his family again. He left an island of silence and a mystery for centuries. The single word Croatoan is the central pillar of the Roanoke mystery, a clue that is both tantalizingly specific and maddeningly vague. On the surface, its meaning seems straightforward. It was the name of a nearby island, now part of the Outer Banks known as Hatteras Island, and also the name of the Algonquian-speaking Native American tribe that inhabited it. This tribe, led by a chief named Manteo, had maintained relatively friendly relations with the English. Manteo himself had traveled to England and was a key ally. The logical conclusion, and the one John White immediately drew, was that the colonists had peacefully relocated to Croatoan Island, likely to seek the support and sustenance of Manteo's people. This remains the most widely accepted and plausible theory. This interpretation suggests a story of adaptation and survival, rather than one of tragedy. Faced with starvation and isolation, the colonists may have made a calculated decision to merge with the local population that had shown them kindness. It is conceivable that they dismantled their homes to build new shelters or to trade. The absence of the distress signal strongly supports a planned voluntary move. The colonists were not fleeing in panic, they were executing a contingency plan. However, if the colonists did move to Croatoan Island, why was no definitive trace of them ever found there? John White was prevented from investigating himself, and subsequent English explorers did not mount a serious and timely search. By the time anyone made a concerted effort to look, years had passed. The colonists, if they were there, could have moved on, been wiped out by disease, or become so fully integrated into the Croatoan tribe that their English identity was all but erased. Some later accounts contain tantalizing but unconfirmed rumors of gray-eyed, fair-haired individuals living among the Hatteras Indians. But these stories were second-hand and impossible to verify. The word Croatoan could also carry a darker, more ambiguous meaning. While it points to a place, it might also have been a warning. Perhaps it indicated the tribe responsible for their fate, whether as saviors or as captors. Without full context, the carving is open to multiple interpretations. It could have been the last word carved by a dying hand, a final testament to where they had gone or who had sealed their doom. The starkness of the single word, standing alone without further explanation, is what gives it its chilling power. It is an incomplete sentence, a story cut short, leaving us to fill in the blanks with our own hopes and fears. Section 6. Whispers of Curses and Phantoms. Where historical records fall silent, human imagination often rushes in to fill the void. Over the centuries, the story has become entwined with chilling tales of curses, ghosts, ominous portents. One of the most enduring legends claims that the land itself was cursed. Native American shamans, angered by the English encroachment, the vengeful spirit of a slain tribal leader. According to these stories, the curse doomed the settlement to vanish, its people swallowed by a malevolent force that still haunts the island. This narrative transforms the colonists into tragic characters in a supernatural drama, their fate sealed by forces beyond their control. These ghostly tales often center on Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. One popular legend recasts her as a white doe, transformed by a sorcerer, redeemable only by a magic silver arrow, and tragically killed by her own lover, who mistakes her for a deer. Her spirit is said to haunt the island to this day. Such legends, while not historical, add Gothic romance and tragedy. The supernatural narrative extends to eerie experiences, disembodied whispers, spectral figures, phantom ships, ghostly lights, and the faint cries of a baby, now part of regional folklore and tourism. These stories appeal to our deepest fears of the unknown. They provide a simple, terrifying answer and keep the mystery mystical, resisting dry analysis. They demonstrate how deeply the fate of the Roanoke colonists has penetrated the American psyche. They are not merely historical subjects, they have become our national ghosts, their unresolved fate a blank canvas for anxieties about the wilderness, the unknown, and the idea of being utterly and completely lost. The curse is not on the land, but in the story itself, which refuses to give us peace. Section 7. The Archaeologist's Shovel and the Historian's Map. While folklore spins tales of phantoms, modern science, and historical scholarship have been chipping away with tangible tools, the archaeologist's shovel and the historian's map. For decades, archaeologists have been excavating sites on Roanoke Island, and more recently, on Hatteras Island and the mainland. At the original settlement site, Fort Raleigh has been confirmed with late 16th century English artifacts, but no evidence of battle, massacre, or widespread fatal disease. No graves, no catastrophe. More promising discoveries emerged at Site X, about 50 miles inland at the Chowan-Roanoke confluence. A concealed fort symbol on John White's map suggests a potential inland move. Excavations reveal a mix of native pottery and European ceramics, including Surrey, Hampshire borderware, suggesting English presence alongside a native community. On Hatteras Island, the place named in the carving, recent work has unearthed English artifacts from the correct period mixed with native items: pottery pieces, a small sword hilt, a lead writing tablet, and part of a flintlock mechanism. While not definitive proof of a full relocation, it's strong evidence that at least some colonists reached Hatteras and lived among the Croatoan. Combined with documents, a nuanced picture emerges. Not a single dramatic fate, but a split into smaller groups, some to Hatteras, others inland towards Site X, explaining the lack of one overwhelming site. The lost colony may have fragmented, dispersing into coastal Carolina, their English identity slowly fading over generations. Section 8. A web of realistic possibilities. Beyond the dramatic theories of curses and assimilation, the disappearance can be understood through a web of grim but realistic possibilities. The brutal reality of the 16th century wilderness meant survival was a daily struggle. One straightforward, non-supernatural theory: the colonists succumbed to starvation or to disease. They arrived too late to plant and relied on stored provisions and on trade. John White's return was delayed 3 years. Their meager supplies would have been exhausted. A harsh winter, a failed hunt, or an outbreak of European or native illness could have decimated them without signs of violent struggle. Conflict is another plausible explanation. Relations with the Croatoan were generally positive, but the colonists had hostility with other mainland tribes such as the Secatan. Early English explorers used violence, and lingering resentment could have led to a full-scale attack. A surprise raid could have left them killed or taken captive. Some Spanish records mention rumors that the Powhatan Confederacy to the north, led by Chief Wahun Seneca, claimed to have wiped out the Roanoke settlers to prevent alliances with rivals. Another possibility: the colonists attempted a desperate journey on their own. They had a pinnace, which they could have used to sail north to Chesapeake Bay, or even attempt England. Such a journey would have been incredibly risky, and they could have been lost at sea in a storm, explaining the lack of bodies or land evidence. Ultimately, the likeliest truth is a combination of factors. The colony may have fragmented, some integrated with the Croatoan, others died of disease or starvation, and others were killed in conflict. Messy and multifaceted, less satisfying, but consistent with history. The colonists were diverse people who likely made different choices. Their story had many endings, each fading into the unrecorded history of the Carolina coast. Section 9. An unwritten final chapter. Today, on the 26th of September 2025, the mystery of the Roanoke colony persists not as a dusty historical footnote, but as a living question. The story endures, because it speaks to a fundamental human experience, the confrontation with the unknown. The colonists were pioneers balanced on the knife's edge between a familiar past and an uncertain future. They represented the hopes of a nation and the personal dreams of families seeking a better life. Their disappearance is a stark reminder that even the most determined human endeavors can be swallowed by circumstances, leaving behind more questions than answers. The carved word Croatoan acts as a permanent memorial to their story, a final ambiguous message that has kept their memory alive. The search has evolved from a desperate father's quest into a multidisciplinary investigation. Modern archaeology, advanced mapping technologies, and even DNA analysis offer new pathways. Each pottery shard and soil anomaly provides a tiny flicker of light in the deep darkness of the past, yet we are still fundamentally guessing. We are piecing together a mosaic from scattered tiles, trying to reconstruct a picture that may never be fully visible. The truth is likely a complex tapestry of assimilation, conflict, disease, and dispersal, too messy for a simple conclusion. Its enduring power lies in its refusal to be solved. It challenges our desire for tidy endings. The lost colony is perhaps the ultimate American cold case.